We are very happy to have you all with us today, and we look forward to learning more on this beautiful topic on the occasion of Mother's Day. And what is the inspiration for today's program? We all want to give our best to our children, but the best we can give goes as far as we know or what we think is the best. Today's program is a compilation of questions asked by mothers, and to answer all those questions, we need a holistic knowledge coming from authority, which are either scriptures directly or from the lives of people who have lived those values. The role models we see in scriptures like Queen Kunti, Mother Suniti of Dhruva, etc., how practical are their stories to all of us now? And what is the inspiration we can get from them? And how do we apply them in our day to day life? This seminar is a humble attempt so we all parents get answers to those questions in our mission to be and become better mothers. Some of you might be wondering, we have heard and known several parenting tips and values. However, the challenge is with the implementing or applying those values we learned. That we believe depends on two important factors: our strong desire to implement those values, which again depend on one's realization of how important it is to make these changes. And the second, the most important point, is that person who gives these instructions. When we sincerely hear these instructions from realized souls who have put them into practice, the transformation is guaranteed. To help us with answering all the questions and to inspire us, today we have with us three wonderful mothers, spiritual leaders, guides, mentors, and most important, the direct disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We are blessed to have the association of Her Grace Jayasri Devi Dasi, Her Grace Urmila Devi Dasi, and Her Grace Uttama Dasi. While the three speakers for today do not require any introduction, I will take this opportunity for my own so that I can be inspired further for myself again and all of you, the viewers. Her Grace Jayasri Devi Dasi met Srila Prabhupada in the spring of 1969 in Hawaii, where she was raised and was initiated on May 13, 1969. Mataji then moved into the temple in Hawaii, where she served as a brahmacharini for about 5 years and was married and lived in Detroit Temple in 1976 for several years on the request of Srila Prabhupada. Mataji moved to New Vrindavan in West Virginia in 1983 with her 3 sons and has lived there ever since, taking up many responsibilities and services. Today, Mataji is joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Mataji. Our humble obeisances and heartfelt obeisances from all of us here for joining and helping us enlighten on this topic.
Thank you for having me.
Her Grace Urmila Devi Dasi Mataji has served ISKCON continuously since her initiation by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. She and her husband are in the Vanaprastha order since 1996. They have 3 married children, 14 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandsons. She has a PhD in education, was a primary and secondary teacher for 27 years, and has 19 years of experience with school management. Her Grace Urmila Mataji is the chair of the Shastri Advisory Council to the GBC, an associate editor of Back to Godhead, and formerly a professor of sociology of religion at Bhaktivedanta College. She travels worldwide teaching Krishna consciousness. She's the author of Essence Seekers, Dr. Best Learn to Read, an 83-book literacy program, and the Great Mantra for Mystic Meditation. Mataji is joining us today from North Carolina. Thank you, Urmila Mataji, and the humble obeisance and heartfelt obeisances from all of us here. Thank you for your time and association today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Her Grace Uttama Dasi is co-president of the Grihastha Vision team. She and her husband were initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. They both serve as marriage mentors and relationship trainers. They were traveling extensively to many ISKCON communities, facilitating seminars on relationship dynamics, which they are now doing virtually. They also help many new couples using the systematic premarital education program. In addition, they train other mature, happily married couples to do the same. They live in Sharanagati Dhama, Canada, and have 3 children and 6 fun grandchildren. Before serving on the GVT, which she has been doing for the last 16 years, She served as president 10 years and then board member another 10 years for Sharanagati Village, a rural devotional community in British Columbia, Canada. She has also spent 20 years in the Vancouver temple doing Pujari Seva and teaching children. One of her all-time favorite services is weekly Bhagavad Gita sessions with teens. Mataji is now joining us from British Columbia in Canada. Thank you, Mataji. Our humble and heartfelt obeisances at your lotus feet. Thank you for your time and association.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we move forward with the questions, we want to let you all know that we are giving away two beautiful Damodara murtis to two participants. So you will need to answer the questions at the end of this session, which will be based on what is discussed in this seminar. Please type your answers in the comment section to the YouTube link that has already been pasted in the Zoom chat. We will pick two winners from a draw, and now we will move on to the questions for today. So I humbly request all of you to be attentive and pay attention. So and be focused so that we get our answers from these exalted devotees. Now, before we dive into the question and answer session, Matajis, I request all of you, one after the other, of course, to give an overview of how should one celebrate Mother's Day. And there is no reference to Mother's Day celebration in Shastra. What is its relevance for all of us? Urmila Mataji, if you can go first, that would be great for us.
The Shastra is not going to have some explanation of a modern Western holiday, but the Shastra, and not only the Vedic Shastra, but all the scriptures of the world, says that we should honor our mother and father. One of the austerities in the mode of goodness that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita is that one should worship the superiors such as the mother and father. And of course, the Shastra also mentions that there's more than one mother. There's the biological mother, there's the nurse, there's the wife of the king, the wife of the Brahmana, Mother Earth, and so forth. So this concept of giving honor and regard and respect to one's mother is prevalent in all the world scriptures, and it's prevalent in all the world cultures. So to have a particular day set aside to focus on that is certainly not a bad thing, and can certainly be incorporated into the life of Vaishnavas. So of course we respect our parents because they gave us life, and particularly they gave us this human body, particularly the mother who carried us around within her own body. That's a pretty extraordinary thing to do. You know, we care for someone else, but to actually carry someone in your body for 9 months, to feed them from your body, to take care of all of their physical, emotional, social, and all of their spiritual needs for so long when they're in such a state of dependency. And of course, the young child is not really able to be very appreciative. Therefore, Prabhupada says this love of the mother is the closest thing we can understand to selfless, pure love, where you're serving someone who can't really even understand that you're serving them, and can't, at least when they're small, and can't really even be appreciative of that, again, at least when they're small. So at least when we grow up, we should be appreciative, and we should show respect, and we should show honor to our mothers. And of course, Krishna says that he is the mother. So we think of God as the father, but God is also the mother. The universe exists within his body, as Lord Brahma says in his prayers in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. He says, we are all existing within your belly, and we are all produced from the Lord. He is carrying us. Lord Brahma also said he's not offended with us, like the pregnant mother is not offended by the kicking of the child. And he is nourishing us from his own body, like the mother nourishes the children from her own body. And he is giving everything to us, even when we are ungrateful and unappreciative. So in that sense, also, the Lord can be understood as mother. And by appreciating our human mothers in this life, we can ultimately appreciate the Supreme Lord.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for reminding us being our Supreme Father and Mother. And with that consciousness is what we all want to move forward this discussion through. Thank you so much for bringing up that point. Uttama Mataji, if you can elaborate or add more points to the importance of Mother's Day and how one should celebrate Mother's Day.
Well, I just wanted to, thank you for inviting me here. I was thinking that I had a wonderful mother. So I'm very grateful to be able to share some insights into motherhood, as a tribute to her, because even though she didn't know it, she raised me to become a devotee. So that's to her eternal credit. So as Urmila was sharing with us that mothers, they're honored in all traditional cultures because, they give us that taste of love. It's just like Urmila was explaining that Srila Prabhupada said that the mother's love is the closest to unalloyed love of God. So it's because she experiences that love by giving. Our spiritual mathematics is that the more you give, the more you experience love. Modern mathematics is the more you give away, the less you have, right? But spiritual dynamics is so wonderful that, the more love you give, the more you experience love. So mothers give selflessly, day and night. Middle of the night, the baby cries. It doesn't even have to cry. The first kid you have that goes beep and you're awake. It's like you're just ready to serve at any moment. So we see that mothers, they give that selfless love, even though, as Urmila was saying, they rarely thank us for bugging them to do their homework, teaching them to be responsible, clean our room, training us how to do something. They just grumble, right? But we're experiencing love because we're giving it and serving selflessly. So that's like a really wonderful attitude that if we're conscious, we can imbibe that. So similarly, we see that we may have never served a deity, but you start to serve a deity and you develop love for God just by that service attitude. So the more we serve with love, the more we will actually feel love. So motherhood, it allows us to experience that selfless love either by being mothered or, by giving it. And so it's a really good way to feel the experience a little bit that we can get from developing love for Krishna. So of course, sometimes when we get into marital relationships, we kind of forget that a little bit, and we think everything should be the way we want it. We get that little selfishness, like I expect them to do everything the way I like it. So that's a more complicated topic. We won't, go there. But the real formula is that if we want to feel love, we have to give it. So I think that Mother's Day is a really a perfect opportunity to deepen our understanding and to practice that by giving love, we'll be able to feel more love. And therefore, if we take the time to appreciate, that wonderful gift that all of our various mother figures have given us, that will help us ultimately in our spiritual advancement. So thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. And as you mentioned that one can understand Krishna's love for us, and the only way we can understand is by understanding how a mother likes the child. And you also explained the spiritual dynamics of how only in the spiritual world it happens that the more you give, the more you get back, as opposed to in material world that you give and you don't get it proportionately. So that was a very good realization and point you made, Mataji. Thank you so much. Now moving on to Jayasri Mataji, can you please also elaborate further on Mother's Day and its importance and relevance today?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, my God sisters, for your great knowledge and association. So how should we celebrate Mother's Day? There's no reference to Mother's Day celebration in the Shastras. Actually, we have so many holidays in our calendar year. We have Christmas, we have Valentine's Day, we have Easter. These are kind of the major holidays that we celebrate. But actually, most of the ones that we celebrate have a Christian basis, something spiritual. Christmas, of course, is Christ's birthday. Valentine's Day, there was a saint, Saint Valentine's. He was a Christian saint. That's where Valentine's Day started. Easter, of course, is the resurrection of Jesus. But in our modern day society, these holy days have commercially become holidays, right? So people don't think of the actual reason for the holy day. It's just become a extravagant time for people to party and buy things and have parties, celebrate something other than what they're meant for. And Mother's Day is not in the scripture. And I looked up the actual beginning of Mother's Day, and I had never done that before. Let me see. I had problem with my computer right before, and I think I lost a bunch of stuff. Okay, Mother's Day started by Anne Jarvis, and it was a way to honor her mother, Anne Revis Jarvis, who organized Mother's Day work clubs to improve the sanitary conditions and stem her community that had huge amounts of infant mortality around the days of the Civil War. So her daughter, after she passed away, started something. It was like a holiday for honoring her mother and other mothers, to remember and honor mothers. It was actually somewhere I lost it here. Anyway, so that's how Mother's Day started. But it is always there that the mother is the base of everyone's life. We get our body from our mother. The scriptures, all the scriptures of the world tell us to honor our father and mother, those personalities that give us birth, raise us, take care of us, give us education, hopefully give us something spiritual. So I know in Puerto Rico, where I was serving at the temple there for some time, it's like the biggest holiday of the year. They honor their mothers very deeply. And I was happy to see that. In America, it's also done. I don't know different places in the world, but here it's done to a certain extent. How should we reciprocate with one's mother and her love? All right, so the position of mother is very special. It's unique. Everyone has a mother, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be here. And it's not on the Vaishnava calendar, but it's logically spoken about many times by Srila Prabhupada. He talks about the Vedas as the mother, the earth as the mother, the nurse, the teacher, the spiritual master's wife. There's so many mothers spoken about in the Vedas. And of course, the Vedic literature gives us an outlook of honor and respect and kindness, and to honor the mother who's given us so much is a natural outcome of spirituality. So although it's not specific that we have a Vaishnava holiday for mothers, it is specific that we should honor our parents and those that have taught us, and not only our birth mother, but all the other mothers, the cow, right? The earth. What's forgotten in this age? The earth is our mother. This is such an important concept. And what's happening is people aren't taking care of the earth mother, basically. So Earth Day is a way to honor Mother Earth. So I myself always call my mother. I always send her something. I spend as much time because I realized later in my life how important she was in my life. You know, not just the teachings of how to clean a house and how to cook and all of those things, but also she's the one that's always there when I'm in need to give me some support and some shelter. So honoring mothers on Mother's Day is a very important part of our life. All right. Thank you very much. I'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Jayasri Mataji. I mean, you remind me of the fact that holidays transform from holidays to holidays, and we all have to be really conscious of any celebration that we make. What is the spiritual significance and the reason behind the celebrations that we do? And you have nicely given examples from your life how you till now also value your mother so much. So that should be an inspiration for all of us children, as to how we should reciprocate with our mother. So on the same note, Jayasri Mataji answered our second question too. So if Urmila Mataji can answer how one should reciprocate, because most of the discussion today is going to be about inspiring mothers as to how they should be better mothers. But we just wanted to add this one question here. So we as children, how should we reciprocate with our mothers and their love? Can you please give us guidelines? Because most of the times we are away from mothers and we are so busy in our daily schedule that we are not conscious of all the love and the protection that our mothers have always been given, even though they're distant and away from us. So how do we reciprocate? Should it be only on Mother's Day, or should it be something which should be done on all days? And what is your suggestion and guidance for us? Thank you. Urmila Mataji.
Did you direct that at me?
Yes, Mataji.
I don't know if it's possible to answer that because we're all such individuals. You know, what a particular mother needs or wants, what a particular child is able to give, how close we live to somebody, you know, there's so many factors in there. I mean, for some people, if their mother is ill or disabled, it may mean that their mother lives with them and they take care of their mother's physical needs and so forth. For other people, that may mean calling them on the phone once a month. I mean, I think it's such a variety of ways as far, if we're going to talk about specifics. I don't think we can give some specific, you know, do this, do this, do this. But in the general way, there should be a mood of gratitude, a mood of appreciation, and a mood of service as far as possible. You know, again, it's really going to depend so much on people's individual situations and what situation is the mother in and what situation are you in. And it's also going to involve trying to engage our mothers in Krishna consciousness if our mothers are not devotees. That may just mean giving prasadam to our mothers, or maybe doing some spiritual activity and offering it to her on her behalf, or engaging her in whatever service she's willing to do, and so forth.
Very inspiring, Mataji. You mentioned about how one should be appreciative, they should show gratitude and service, and above all, serve them in a Krishna conscious way. That is really very inspiring, and I hope we all can imbibe those messages and practice them in our lives. Uttama Mataji, if you can add more to that, do you have any additional points?
I guess we're both unmuting me at the same time. I don't know as I have anything else to answer. I think that was a really good concrete answer, because it really will depend on the individual. And each mother has different ways that they like to be reciprocated with. I think the general idea is just to share that gratitude. And in order to share it, you have to feel it. You have to sit down and, notice and remember how much you do appreciate your mother, and take a little bit of time to think about it, and then express that in whatever way is appropriate.
Thank you, Mataji. Now we move on to the questions that the mothers have asked. one generic question that was asked is, a mother has multiple hats to wear. She has career, parenting, spirituality, and socializing with extended family, friends, and society. How do we carefully balance these? Uttama Mataji, if you can take it and answer for us.
Um, I think I should direct you to Urmila's seminar last week. I saw an advertisement. She did a similar seminar on balancing your life. So you can look that one up on the internet to start with.
Yes.
Of course, you know, we have to do it with intelligence and by focusing on our values. They always say that, you know, ladies are really good at multitasking. So maybe that's why we get this, you know, multitude of things we have to do, because Krishna also gave us some kind of a facility that, you know, we can do it reasonably well, most of us. There was one, I saw this kind of a quip, a joke years ago that said, whatever women do, they must do twice as well to be thought of as half, to be thought to, let me start again. Whatever women do, they must do twice as well to be thought half as good. And luckily that's not very difficult. So that was like, you know, a little bit of a quip. But it does mean that we do have a lot of things to do. And we are good at many things. So we end up with lots of hats that we're wearing. So we do need to focus on our values and spend time on the areas we value the most. Because it's really easy to hardly spend any time on the things that you value. Like maybe your, you know, your family and spending time together because you're so busy with the subsidiary things of making them money and supporting them and things like that. So we need to actually be able to make sure that we spend time on the things that we value the most, or we're going to be feeling very disturbed inside, and that's not going to help us to balance. So I also find that because we're mothers and we have so many things to do, and because Kali Yuga tends to make our schedules very hectic, we do really need to take some time for self-care, because otherwise, you know, my stress is going to sabotage my ability to be able to prioritize and balance things in life. And so we have to be also self-aware so that we can help others. You know, just like you get on the airplane and they say, you know, put on your mask and then help the other kids, you know, your child. So we also do need to take that time to be self-aware what we need so that we can balance all of these things well. And I think when we take that time for, someone just said to me, internal engineering. That's a good one. I'm going to remember that. Take some time for this internal engineering to see, you know, what our values are and are we living by our values and how we can balance things. We'll be able to do it if we have that little bit of self-care.
Thank you, Mataji. And as you mentioned, I think self-care always takes the back seat for a busy and ambitious mother. And we all should keep that in mind, because unless we are healthy spiritually, mentally, and physically, we cannot really take good care of the family and children. That's a very good point to make. Thank you so much, Mataji. Jayasri Mataji, if you can elaborate on how a mother can multitask at the same time be successful.
Okay, yes, we definitely, if we're responsible personalities, if we're responsible mothers, or members of society, we have a lot on our plate. If we are single parents, we have, Prabhupada, in one place, he said it's very difficult for a woman to become Krishna conscious, but it is most difficult for a woman alone to become Krishna conscious. So if a woman is alone with children, it's a very difficult situation to be in. But every situation is different. So there's really not one answer for how to balance your life. It depends on your job. It depends on how many kids you have, what your health is. But we basically have our material life and situation and our spiritual advancement to deal with. And Prabhupada talks about there being so many zeros in this world. Everything we accumulate materially, whatever it is, our body, our wealth, our house, our family, everything is zeros until you add God as number one. And then his eyes got very big and he said, and then it becomes 100 million. So making sure that the base of our life keeps that spiritual base and focus. It's the most important because it kind of feeds off into everything else, how we do everything else. And so we don't want to forget that part of our life. And we don't always have the facility to make it the most, it's always the most important part of our life, but we don't always have time to make it the prevalent part of our life. Sometimes we have to make money. Sometimes we have children that are sick. But still, if that's not there, then everything else kind of gets off kilter. So balancing is using your intelligence to equate everything in such a way that everything has importance and is done well. That's it.
Thank you, Mataji. All the zeros and Krishna as number one really helps me to keep in mind what is important. Urmila Mataji will definitely watch the video that Uttama Mataji suggested, and I'm going to share it in my YouTube link too. However, can you please give us some more highlights or anything different from what has already been discussed about the same question? You're on mute, Mataji. You're not able to unmute yourself. Sushma, can you unmute Mataji? Yeah, we're trying to. Okay. Yes, Mataji.
You had said it so that I couldn't unmute myself.
I'm so sorry.
Not a problem. I don't know if I can really add much. I really feel what Uttama and Jayasri said was sufficient. But this concept of adding Krishna, my main view about balance is that you spiritualize everything. You see your household chores, you're taking care of your children, taking care of a husband, working at a job, whatever. You see all that as part of your spiritual service. And now I know, what Jayasri was saying about the material and spiritual. Prabhupada says that, for example, in the purport to 930 in the Bhagavad Gita, that we have our conditional activities and our constitutional activities. So that's a fact. At the same time, we can take our bodily and physical activities and spiritualize them by doing them for Krishna, by seeing Krishna in them. And while it is true that there are times when we cannot prioritize our spiritual activities in terms of time, in general, I think it's also very important what Uttama is saying, to make our values the priorities, to say, what do I really value? If spiritual life really is the most important, then at least on a regular basis, in absence of a temporary emergency, I should make sure that my spiritual activities, my sadhana, are prioritized, because that spreads out into everything else. There's a lot more that we could talk about with this. How do we apportion our energy so that we have enough energy for each of the parts of our day, and how do we focus on each of the parts of our day with great attention? I mean, we really could talk about this for several hours, but the main thing is to, what did Stephen Covey say? Keep the main thing, like that, and then to spiritualize every part of our life.
So now we are moving on to the questions for parenting kids, and one question that was asked is, kids mostly spend time with mother and look up to mother as their role model. What is the role of a mother in raising Krishna conscious children and helping them stay away from bad influence or association? In this connection, a mother asks, My work gets priority over my child. I'm guilty, but I do not know how to resolve this. So, Urmila Mataji, can you please speak on this question first?
All right, well, let's look at the specifics and then let's look at the general. So you have specific that someone says she's prioritizing her work over her child and she's feeling guilty about it. All right, well, first of all, guilt is very useful for about 1 or 2 minutes. After that, I mean, it's useful just to alert us that there's some disparity between my behavior and my values. It's like a little alarm that goes beep, 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 your values don't match your behavior. But if we stay in guilt, then we're actually end up in tamagun. We actually end up in the motivators. So then we're just hating ourselves and feeling bad about ourselves. And the more that we hate ourselves and the more that we feel bad about ourselves, the more we actually avoid fixing the problem. Because every time we think about the problem, we feel bad. If that makes any sense. Like if every time you touch a fence, you get an electric shock, you're not going to touch the fence. So if every time you think about taking care of your kids, you feel guilt, then you're actually less likely to take care of your kids. So there are several ways to deal with this. One is to celebrate whatever attention you do give to your children. By rewarding yourself in that way, you're likely to spend more time with them. So anytime that you're with them, anytime you give them your attention, just tell yourself internally, wow, I'm giving attention to my kids. Yay, wonderful. Another thing is to really get off of this platform of, I need to be a good mother, and get on the platform of what would please Krishna. What would please Krishna? How does Krishna want me to take care of these children? How can I deal with them in a way that pleases Krishna? Also, whatever time you spend with your children, and this is something that I know I struggled with when my children were younger and I had a whole lot of things to do, but to give them your full attention at least a good portion of the time you're with them. I mean, sometimes you have to be cooking and taking care of the children and so forth, but to have some time when you're just focused on the children, when you're giving them all your attention, you're not looking at your phone, you're not cooking something on the stove, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes a day, where you're really just focusing on them and what's going on in their life. I should add that there is a famous book by a palliative care nurse about the 5 main regrets of the dying. And one of the main things people regret when they die is that they prioritize work over family. And she said that every single man that she tended in his last days who had worked in the world had that regret. And any woman who'd been out in the working world had that regret. So, you know, maybe we really want to think about that. If everybody, when they die, who were working too much and prioritizing work over kids and over family regrets that, then maybe we really want to make some change now, and not out of guilt, but out of joy, out of care, out of love, out of service, and say, what could I do? What's a small thing I could do this week to shift that boundary a little bit? A small thing that I'd actually be willing to do that I can find joy in doing, and do that for a week. Maybe do it for 2 weeks. Then look at it again. Okay, how can I shift it a little bit more in a way that's going to be joyful for me, that I'm actually willing to do? And keep doing that until you get to a point where you find that, yeah, all right, if I were to die today, I'd say, I don't have regrets about this.
Very nice points. Inspiring points. Hopefully the mother who asked this question is listening to the answer and able to make changes in her lifestyle. And as you mentioned, I think even 15 minutes of focused, attentive time towards the child will make a huge difference. So thank you so much, Mataji, for that answer. And an answer to the first part of the question, which is how can a mother be the role model to inspire their children into Krishna consciousness? So can we get an explanation on that, if Jayasri Mataji can help us understand that question?
Yeah, it seems to me that the questions that I have written down are different than some of the ones you're asking now. So maybe there's two lists of questions. Well, I mean, the most important impact on a child is a role model. And the mother, of course, is generally, not always, but generally the specific role model for the child from the time, well, actually from the time they're within the womb. I remember when we were young and we're having babies, our focus often was what the baby's hearing inside. What am I eating for the child, making sure that you're not doing the wrong things. And then they come out and you have the same responsibility, how to take care of their bodies so they're healthy, and also what's surrounding them as far as listening to, associating their eyes with something spiritual, something pure. So I know for myself, I would, whatever, most of us were very poor way back when we started having children in Krishna consciousness. So we would get things from the flea market, and I would put like Krishna pictures all over them. And, I would Krishnaize everything. But the role model of the mother is like the most important part of the child's life. So that gives the child direction. And if the mother's spiritually focused, like Urmila says, it's not that you can do everything a certain way, that you can take your child to Mangalarti every morning. It depends on your specific situation, but surely you can Krishnaize the world that surrounds the child and your own life also. And it's true, Prabhupada points it out over and over again, to focus just mainly on making money in this world. We're supposed to, simple living and high thinking means that our focus is not just on making more money than we need so that we can just spend it and spend it and spend it. It's to make money that we need to live comfortably and healthy, and to focus our time on our spirituality, because we do not know when death is coming. We know it's part of our life. It's going to come today, tomorrow, we're not sure when. So we don't want to spend our time thinking, oh, I have to make all this money so I can become Krishna conscious at the end. And then you forget your present life and you don't lead a good example for your children. And then they end up doing the same thing because that's the example they've been given. So I hope that answered something of, because I can't see the question.
Thank you so much. Next question is, as a parent, I tend to get over-attached or too invested in the child's future, constantly anxious and finding the need to overstep. This causes undue mental stress for me as well as a strained relationship with my child. How do I detach myself from this constant interference? Uttama Mataji, if you can take this, that'll be great.
Thank you. I think the first thing is perhaps we need to do some internal scan to see why we're so anxious. Because it's natural for a mother to want the best for their child, and no mother wants to see their child in a suffering condition. If they don't get their homework done, you build up all these big visions of how the whole world 10 years from now is going to be terrible because they didn't finish this one math assignment today. So I think we have to, try to put everything in perspective and see why we are becoming so anxious. So again, it always starts with ourselves. Maybe we have to, journal or ask a friend, why we get anxious, and take a look at these anxious parts of ourselves and see what they're trying to tell us, so we can more clearly formulate, a rational plan for our anxiety. And then maybe concretely sit down and talk with your child and work out a plan with them, so you can see together, how they can get things done without your constant interference. So we may have to, train them to be able to schedule themselves a little better, use their time in better ways, make a plan. But when you do it jointly with your child, instead of just dictating, they're more likely to be able to become self-sufficient, later on in life. So that detachment has a lot, it comes from you. It's not your child's responsibility. So the fact that your child is, feeling a sigh of relief when you're not around because you're constantly, nagging them, is not a good sign. Because children, they learn how to co-regulate their own emotions by seeing us. So when we are displaying anxiety and anxiousness, it's going to be very hard for your child not to also be anxious and not be able to be productive. So we were going back to like role modeling, and part of role modeling is to teach our kids how to handle difficult situations, how to deal with stress and anxiety so that they can manage their life in proactive, well-functioning ways. So a really big part of role modeling is actually listening, listening to see what the child's needs are and how you can actually help them. When you do this, does that help them? Talk to them. It's not all just top down. We have to hear, what their needs are from them and help them to understand their own emotions and regulate their emotions. And then they can be well-functioning adults. So I'll just stop there. That's just a little piece of the puzzle.
Very nice, inspiring us to how we should not be dictators, but plan to spend time with them, be at their level and try to invest some time in them. Thank you, Mataji. We now move on to the next question is, I fret every time I see the children indulge in too much screen time or when I see them not focusing in reading time or studying time. So what is the solution to that? Urmila, Mataji, if you can take that.
Okay, well, this is a very interesting question. The American Society of Pediatric Doctors have said that they recommend that children under 2 have 0 screen time, and between ages 2 to 5, I think it's something like an hour a week. I don't know very many families who actually adhere to that, and especially when you have several children of different ages. So if you're letting your older child have more screen time, the younger one is also there watching. The main difficulty with so-called screen time is for developing children is not so much the screen itself, but what is preventing the children from doing. So the research way back in the 70s in relationship to television was that children who spent so much time just like watching a screen were not using that same time interacting with their environment. And young children really need to interact with their environment. They need to interact with other people. They need to interact with things in order to form the basis for their whole future life. So when we're talking about very young children, like birth to 5 years old, we should really do our very best to remember that for millions of years, parents didn't have screens and they were able to keep children happy at meal times, and they were able to keep children happy while they cooked, and they were able to keep children happy in the car. And somehow we all did it without that crutch of being able to put a screen in front of them. So there are things that the children can do. All right. Now going on, when you start talking about older children, I think especially this last, 14 months in this pandemic, I think most of us have too much screen time, isn't it? I've never spent as much time staring at my computer as I have for the last 14 months. So this is a very difficult situation. If I'm going to say to my kids, don't stare at the screen, and then they look at me and there I am doing all my work and all my studies and all my social life on the screen. That's not going to be very effective. So I think as our kids get older, we want to teach them how to use screens responsibly and not just as a consumer. You know, I use my computer to a large extent as a creator. You know, I use my computer to create material, not just to consume material. And I use my computer as a way of interacting with other people. So what we really want to avoid as the kids get older is just simply being, you know, an unthinking consumer of whatever is on the screens. And then additionally, it's a question of doing interesting things with your children that don't involve staring at the screen. I know one thing my youngest son and his family have always done is, again, there was some challenge in the last 14 months with this, of course, but they try to have their kids have a wide variety of activities that are out of the house. So they have them in, you know, sports and gymnastic and dance and things that are getting them out of the house and getting them be active. And then you don't have to say, get off your screen. You have to go to that level or turning off the Wi-Fi or something, that you have something engaging for them to do instead, you know, some projects for them to do and things like this. And the last thing I want to say about this is just a little caution. You know, it wasn't that long ago that hardly anyone had access to books. Books had to be written by hand. And it was a tiny fraction of society that had books, you know, handwritten books. It was a big deal. You know, maybe you would have one book in your house. And with the invention of the printing press, more and more people got books, more and more people learned how to read. Now, once books became a common item, there was a moral and social outcry that books were damaging children because it was something new. So I think we should keep that in mind also, that, you know, anything that's new in the world, people are going to be about it. And, you know, after a generation or two, we learn how to integrate that in our life and how to have it be part of it. So that little caution is also a good idea in that regard.
Thank you, Mataji. Next question. I want to move on to the teen section so that we cover the questions in that section too. How, as a mother, how do I help my teen to be able to comfortably share whatever goes on outside home? Jayasri Mataji, if you can answer this for us.
Okay, teen life, that is a beginning of a challenge because they're becoming individuals and independent. The relationship that you develop when they're children, the younger ages, that love and that trust that grows between the mother and the child, that carries on into their older years. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So if you're just the authority for your child, and if you're always judging them, oh, why aren't you doing this? And why don't you do it that way? And, you know, if you become just the authority, it's hard for anybody. What to speak of a child, it's hard for anybody to want to share things that they're not sure about or things that they feel maybe not right. And then then they don't have anywhere to go. And it's if you have the wrong mentality with your young children, of not necessarily being their friend and their loving companion, then when they get older, they're probably not going to turn to you to reveal their mind for what's going on outside the house. And it's something that we have to be really careful about. Prabhupada said when a child is young, the parent is like responsible and has to be the guide. And when the child reaches a certain age, they become like a peer. But if you've always just been this heavy dominant person, you're probably not going to get to the point with your child when they reach that 16, 15-year-old age where they're going to feel comfortable telling you that they're interested in boys, or that they want to do this or that, or this happened. And, you know, if they don't have that relationship already with you, who are they going to turn to? So I think it starts when they're young.
Thank you, Mataji. Next question, Uttama Mataji, I request you to take this one. In olden days, if one drinks, smokes, or were not God-loving, you were the odd man out. However, these days, if you don't drink or don't smoke or are God-loving, unfortunately, you are the odd man out. What are some ways we can explain to kids or teens the right things to do?
Well, first of all, we have to help them get a taste for the right things. Because when, as Prabhupada says, when you have the higher taste, you won't go to the other things as easily. Now, of course, we understand that, especially teens, they're very susceptible to peer pressure. And, you know, they want to fit in. So I think we have to realize that that's coming. And we have to start when our kids are young, explaining to them what the how things work. You know, like what happens when you take too much alcohol? What happens when you take drugs? Before they're at the age where they're just in the peer pressure and they take it without knowledge. So I think we have to be proactive and start the education at a younger age, just explaining to them that how these things work in life, because all of a sudden they're in those situations and they don't really understand all the repercussions. So one thing is to help them get the taste for the spiritual life so they're not as likely to. The second is to try to make sure they have a good peer association, get them into activities where other people are doing wholesome and good things, so that they will feel satisfied there and they don't have to go to those lower tastes, because they actually are lower tastes, even though in the moment they might feel good. So we also need to help our children to be excited about who they are and happy with themselves. So they don't have to worry about being weird when everybody else is drinking and smoking and I'm not drinking and smoking. Like, why am I good the way I am? You know, we have to give them lots of praise and encouragement and association, so that, you know, they can be excited to make good choices. And making good choices starts way earlier in life, where we give them the opportunities, you know, ask them, how are you feeling about this? Listen to them, listen to their fears, and help them find ways to overcome their own anxieties. And when kids are pressuring them at school, what do they do even when they're young, so that when they get to an older age, they're practiced at these things. So yes, we are the odd man out, but everywhere you go, we find that society is not happy doing those things, and they're looking towards spiritual life, mindfulness, meditation, this and that. Why? Because those things don't really bring you happiness. So I think we have to be speaking about that from a young age in a not judgmental way, but nicely educating them how to actually be truly happy. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So parents of younger kids who are still in elementary school, good opportunity for all of us who have younger kids to start this discussion very young in their age, so that we don't have them confused when they're experiencing, when they get into teenage. So thank you, Uttama Mataji, for that. Next question, I will ask Jayasri Mataji. How do I help my teen understand the importance of Gita as I started learning and living myself recently? So, a mother who has been exposed to Krishna consciousness or Bhagavad Gita knowledge realizes the importance of Bhagavad Gita now, and how does she explain the importance of Gita and its values to her teenager at this time as she is living and trying to practice herself?
Well, I mean, it depends on the child also. You know, once a child gets into a teenager, they're pretty independent thinking, you know. I mean, it depends on the relationship she has. If she can get excited about certain things that she's reading, I mean, she can certainly share that with her child, you know, and show some pictures. There's all kinds of things online. There's all kinds of things online and groups online for young people. You just have to kind of find them out. There's books. I was just looking. I know that the Chowpatty, the ISKCON Desire Tree, has a whole bunch of things that are online. If you're near a temple and there's some kind of group of young people, like in New Vrindavan, there's a group, they go out on Harinam and they have like evening classes. There's one young man who's a local West Virginia young man. He was a skateboarder, cool guy, picked up Krishna consciousness, and you know, he gives a class to the other young people in the evening in the library. If you can find some peer devotees that are the child's age, somebody to share with, then that might be helpful. Depend, you know, even in the lives of some of the great devotees, Advaita Acharya, different Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you have where there was a lot of children involved in their families. Some of them, you know, were devotees, and some of them were basically not so interested. So it's not that we're going to make anybody Krishna conscious. You know, the person has to desire, but to find unique ways to share with the child things that you're finding out and connected in the life that they're living is going to give them at least an opportunity to dive in. And who knows, you know, the child may become extremely interested, something that they've been looking for to answer questions in their own life.
Beautiful point. Thank you. My next question will be for Urmila Mataji. How can we help kids practice the values they learn through the spiritual classes they attend? It is easy to make them practice material subject classes like math, tennis, dance, etc., while it feels impossible to make them practice and apply spiritual values. This is even more challenging as they associate with and get exposed to materially attractive things. As a mother, how can I help my kid grow with the values of Krishna consciousness, especially considering a teen as my child?
Well, this is an interesting question because it's hard to know what the person who asked the question means by values. You can certainly train your children in etiquette. I mean, I'm seeing my grandson-in-law train his 3-year-old in proper etiquette. You know, I want some water. Say, Mommy, please give me some water. And until he says, Mommy, please give me some water, we don't give him water. I mean, that's not a difficult thing to do. And then again, he and my granddaughter treat each other with etiquette and respect. So they model it in their own behavior, and they're training their children from the ages of 2 and 3, you know, to start having proper etiquette. So that's just as easy to train as dancing or something else. That really is not a difficult thing to train. If we're talking about actually deep values, like that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, the qualities of a devotee, the only way to really have those values is to live a life in sattvagun or in bhakti. So those who live lives in tamagun will want to do whatever is easiest and most convenient, and they will display good values if it suits them and it's easy, and they won't if it's not easy. Those in rajagun will display good values if it helps their reputation and their prestige and helps them get something that they want. Those in Sattva Gun will display good values because it makes them feel all happy inside. It makes them feel happy and peaceful and balanced inside. And those in Bhakti will display good values to please Krishna. What I see is many of the attempts at values education, whether it's at home or in school, focus on Rajagun. That you should be honest and forgiving and all this, because that way people will like you and you'll get more of what you want and you'll be successful in the world. And that's not ultimately going to help, because anything in Rajagun is going to be given up as soon as there's another way to be liked and to be famous and so forth. So as the person asking the question, if people around you are not imbibing those values and you're learning those values in Rajagun, then you're much more likely to succumb to the pressure of your peers. If you're in Sattva Gun, it's still not ultimately that you have those values, but if one learns the inner sense of satisfaction with being clean, with being forgiving, with being equal poised, that's kind of hard to be shaken even by peer pressure, because it's, like we already said, I think it was Uttama, to get parmdrisva nivartate, you get a higher taste. Sattva Gun is a much higher taste. So if we don't have our children live lives in Sattva Gun, they won't be able to experience that. And ultimately, we're only going to have good values all the time if it's part of love. And the example that I give is, I know this is Mother's Day, but this was much more my experience with my father than with my mother. My mother was a good mother, but my father was much more the person who molded me and shaped me. And because my father spent a lot of time with me really being with me, I naturally wanted to mold my values and my behavior to please him. When I was 3 years old, my father said, "Don't ever smoke." And so I never smoked. I mean, I'm sure 90% of the kids in my high school were smoking, and I didn't. Not because I was scared of cancer or anything like that. In those days, they were just beginning to make propaganda that smoking causes cancer, but to please my father, because it was love, because I really cared. I wanted to be the kind of person that he'd be happy with, not even that he would be proud of, just part of the loving relationship. So having that kind of relationship with Krishna, wanting to please Krishna, is the way. And that means bringing our children into a personal relationship with Krishna from as young of an age as possible.
Thank you, Mataji. Beautiful answer. Love, I think, is the king of everything, which solves all problems. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I'll move on to the next question to Jayasri Mataji. We are educating our daughters just like sons. They want to grow up and contribute to workforce. How should they balance spirituality, motherhood, and career?
Well, that's kind of a difficult one for me, because I don't really see. I think it's more just the sign of the times, the way things are going. A lot of men haven't been responsible, and so naturally women become independent, whether it's the father that's not responsible or the husband that's not responsible. And the girls, it's just the sign of the times. The girls, instead of being taught to cook and sew and clean and raise a family and be a mother, they have to make money too, to keep things going, to live at a certain standard. It's just unfortunate, because I think the place of the men and the place of the woman has become so mixed up that there's no real proper standard. Basically, I mean, Prabhupada talks, and my family, my father was the man of the house. I mean, there was no question that his wife worked, or that they were equal on all levels. He was the man of the house. And it seems to me that Prabhupada's, or the Vedic culture, has that same kind of atmosphere. But I mean, if a woman's going to have a profession and try and be a mother at the same time, it could be a little challenging if she's taught in her youth that, you know, generally women know how to cook and clean and take care of children. I mean, if she wants to work also, I guess there's nothing wrong with that for sure. But one time when I met Srila Prabhupada, I was dressed in a certain way and I was acting in a certain way. I was, you know, from the American non-culture where girls are not shy and they're not taught certain things. And I was walking with him and he stopped and he put his cane down and he looked at me and he said, "Do you not know you are a woman?" It's like when Prabhupada said something, so much knowledge went through your mind and your heart. And so, you know, in so many places, Prabhupada talks about the position of the man in society, the position of the woman. It's not that they're not equal in importance, but in social stature and position and the ladder of life, there's a distinction in each category of life: man, woman, animal, you know, plant. Everything has its way to be. So the girls can be taught to have a profession, that's fine, but also not to forget that girls should be taught how to be a mother, to cook, to clean, to sew, to take care of a family. Otherwise, we lose, as far as I'm concerned, we lose the social order of things. And everything is not one. That's just not the way it's made.
Beautifully explained. Thank you. I have one question about parenting adults. Is my voice echoing?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, what is the communication a parent should have in helping the child choose their life partner? So, Uttama Mataji, if you can help us with answering this question.
I guess we both unmute me at the same time here. Okay. So your I'm sorry, all the background stuff's sidetracking me. So your question was helping a child choose a life partner?
Correct, Mataji, yes.
Okay. So, you know, we need to model good relationship skills so they know what a good relationship is. Children who haven't experienced good relationships have a hard time knowing how to choose a good partner. So one of the best things, gifts that you can give to your child, is to actually have a good relationship with your husband. That makes children feel very secure, and you are role modeling, you know, that for them so they know what a good relationship looks like. That's going to be one of the biggest ways in which you help them, you know, to choose a life partner. So another thing is we need to teach kids relationship skills, and we need to model them, you know, good listening, being empathetic, communication skills, conflict resolution skills. Kids don't automatically know them. We have to model them and we have to teach them. We have to model emotional intelligence. We have to teach our sons how to practice empathy. We have to teach our daughters, you know, how to turn their complaints into requests. Nothing worse than a complaining lady, you know, nothing worse than complaining man too, but either way, you know, it's just one of the things where, you know, we turn off the other person by, you know, nagging, complaining, making them feel inadequate. So we need to teach our children how to make requests, how to be emotionally intelligent, how to practice empathy when the other person is responding negatively, how to reach out and find their need and soothe them. That's what relationships are about. We have to model good relationships and we have to teach good relationships. So, because the quality of our relationships is going to equal the quality of our life. It's not how much money we make. It's not all these other things. It's going to be the quality of our relationships. So children have to know what good relationships are and how to help them. So then when it comes time to, choosing their life partner, you want to teach them to choose both with their heart and with their head. They have to understand, are these qualities that the person has going to be good with me? Are they going to be good, period? We have to not just go with, the heart has some attraction. Yes, that attraction's good. You want to be, attracted to someone and feel comfortable with them. But we have to really understand, is that person a caliber person? Do they have the skills to be in a relationship? So we need to know what the qualities of that are necessary for good relationships. And we also have to teach people to slow down when they're making relationship decisions, because it's very, very easy to just present your best appearance in the beginning. But until you get to know someone a little bit, those negative patterns that they may have will be hidden. So I think we have to take a little bit of time also, when we're choosing partners, to know what we want, what are good qualities that are necessary for maintaining relationships, and to have experienced and seen good role models of good relationships. So I think all those things go a long way to helping people choose their life partners and make better choices.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Really valuable suggestions and guidance here. The last question, in the best interest of time, I wanted to wind up the session by 2:30 and we have 4 more minutes. So I'm going to ask my last question to Urmila Mataji. Mataji, can you please elaborate or tell us what is the prescribed duty of a mother towards her older adult children?
Well, prescribed duty would mean that it's something in the Shastra. And I am not aware of any prescribed duty in the Shastra specifically towards adult children. So again, I may not make you happy with this, but this is very individual. I mean, Prabhupada does quote Chanaka Pandit, says once a child is 16, you should treat them as a friend. So one thing is that a mother should treat her adult children as far as possible as friends. Let them grow up, let them be their own persons, let them make their own decisions, which will involve letting them make their own mistakes. I mean, I have always tried to be there for my adult children and my adult grandchildren if they need me for anything, to help them in their, when they have a new baby, or to help them around the house, or whatever they need, and to try to be a Krishna conscious partner for them in life and a fellow person on the journey of life. But we do well to remember that our adult children need to be able to have the space to make their own decisions, that we had our chance to guide them and direct them when they were young. And if we didn't do that perfectly, which we probably didn't do it perfectly, oh well, the time's over. and now we can be a friend. And to be overbearing with adult children is definitely going to drive most of them away. It can cause havoc in their life. At the same time, like I think it was Jayasri saying in the beginning, how their parents are there for you. Your mother is there for you. Your father is there for you. I mean, one of the things, my parents passed away about 20 years ago, is you know, that they're not there for me. They're not somebody I can go to and if I need something or like that. So I do try to be there for my adult children and adult grandchildren, but to treat them as we would, as far as possible, as we would treat other adults, in being able to make their own decisions and their own judgments, even if sometimes those are not the best ones. And even if sometimes the results of them are not going to be very good. You know, we can say something, but probably not more than we would say to a good friend. We try to be with them, like I say, as a fellow journey person in this life, in bhakti and in life in general.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for your valuable suggestions and guidance. I thank once again Urmila Mataji, Uttama Mataji, and Jayasri Mataji for giving us your valuable time and association. For us, it is a huge thing to be able to associate with Prabhupada's disciples. And it was really wonderful having you all on this Zoom session and on this occasion of Mother's Day. A Krishna conscious person wants to use and dovetail every occasion to get closer to Krishna. So one of the main motive behind this session was to inspire mothers to somehow engage themselves, their mothers and their children in a Krishna conscious way, inculcate some habits and changes, which you all have wonderfully suggested in all your answers, how to put Krishna in the center and how to role model and how to give time to them, quality time to them, and how to make responsible decisions. I once again humbly bow down at your lotus feet and offer my obeisances, Mataji, to all three of you. Thank you so much for offering your time and giving your association. I hope all the audience, it was helpful. I hope for all of you. There were so many other questions, but considering the time, I was not able to, sorry if I was not able to ask your question. We hope to have future sessions with all the support and encouragement from all of you audience and wonderful Matajis there. So with that said, I want to conclude the program here. However, before I conclude, I would like to share half a minute information about what we do with GitaWise. At GitaWise, we conduct activities, classes, programs, seminars, workshops of all types, just to get people closer to Krishna consciousness for every age group. So if you are interested and would like to become part of GitaWise family, please can join us at Facebook, YouTube, or messages on WhatsApp. And then you have all the information here up on the screen, shared our website. We are huge into contributing philanthropically to society. We give back. We have a huge social impact page where we have given back to the various causes across the globe. We have raised over $80,000 in the last 6 years, which has gone to several projects. Most of them is gone across the globe. Majority of them being like the tribal care projects, the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, and then we also have several ISKCON temple projects that we sponsor. So if you're interested and want to know more about the activities that we do, which are aimed at uplifting our consciousness in a pace that is comfortable to you, please do message us or follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And to the questions that we wanted to ask the audience today, are there any? I've got a couple questions here based on the discussion that we had with Matajis and the answers that they've given. So if you can answer the questions by typing out your answers on the YouTube comment section, 2 of the best answers will be chosen, and we would send out the beautiful Murti of Damodara with Mother Yashoda as the token of Mother's Day. And the questions are, why should we respect our mothers, and why should we be celebrating Mother's Day? So please write down the answers and comment in our YouTube channel for this video, and then let us know, and we will reach out to you with the gifts. Thank you all once again for joining. It has been a wonderful time, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. It was wonderful. Nicely done. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Urmila, for all your wonderful comments and your wisdom, and Uttama also. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you also for arranging this, and thank you, Jayasri and Uttama. So nice to see you again, even if just virtually.
You should come for a
Well,
visit.
glory to Mother's Day. Then we all get to meet. It was wonderful to meet you all and to spend this time with you. It was great connecting with you all. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila
Yes, Srila
Prabhupada. Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Thank you.
Hare. Okay, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.